Welcome to another edition of Calford Catechism Leftovers. I'm Kenny, this is
Travis.
And we're here. Travis was just showing me pictures of his son.
Yeah.
Which is...
John.
That kid is going to be a linebacker.
Yeah, dude is 97th percentile. He's
Wow.
about 10 months old.
Wow.
He's massive.
Yeah. So his son basically weighs about what my daughter weighs, except my daughter is 3.5. Yeah. His son's not even a year old yet, which our daughter is petite, but her personality makes up for it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
She does.
All right, so today we're going to talk about a fun topic. We just decided what it was. If you're new to Leftovers, we have no notes, no prior discussion. We just take a topic, we dive into it for roughly 15 minutes. Today, we're going to talk about homeschooling, but specifically, here's the question. Should I take my kids out of public school?
Right. I mean, I think that question has always been asked in Christian circles when the topic of homeschooling comes up. Mm-hmm. Right now, it's really hot because of everything that's going on with the government, with the hyper-secularization of the school system.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just things are going off the rail right now.
Bringing in false worldly philosophies into the classroom, and yeah.
Yep. So, I mean, this is definitely a hot topic right now, and it's blowing up. But I just think to be fair, with a lot of homeschooling parents and homeschooling families, they've always had this mindset,
right.
or that's always been the question: is
right.
should I put my kid in a public school system or not?
Some people are just beginning to ask the question that has haunted parents for a long time now.
Long time.
Yeah. All right, so let's dive into it. You want to give me your first opinion here?
Go ahead.
All right, so the question is, I'm going to answer the question as directly as I can. Should I take my kids out of public school?
Yeah. Why or why not?
I can't give you a final definitive answer. I am going to recommend that you pray about and consider it. That's as strong as I can be right now.
That's as strong as you can be. That's like your squat game. That's weak.
All right, so Travis just likes being controversial for the sake of being controversial. So here's the thing. On an episode like this, we can't take into consideration every circumstance, okay? There are unique special circumstances out there what I don't want to look at you and say is that it's a sin to have your kids in public school. I can't say that, okay? I don't believe right now that it's wise, to be honest with you. If I'm being completely honest, this is something that my wife and I are struggling with. And that's why I'm being what maybe sounds like vague, because I can't look at you and say, no, you shouldn't, it's a sin, you are an unwise Christian. Generally speaking, I can't say that. I have dear friends who are solid, who disciple their kids tremendously, and their kids are in public school. And so I want to be careful about that. But I just believe that we're living in an age where discipleship within the family is crumbling more and more and more. And public school is another example of parents passing the discipleship of their kids onto someone else. I don't think that's what you're trying to do in every case, but that is happening, and they are being discipled, and more worldly philosophies are being brought in. As Travis said, this has been talked about for a long time, but it's even worse now than it ever has been, in my opinion, and it's even clearer now that it's potentially a very unwise decision to have your kids in public school. That's initial thoughts. I'll probably get stronger as we go through, but I want to set it up that way.
That's good. That's helpful. I think it's a conscience wisdom discussion. I think that we both agree with that right away. This is not a sin issue. And with that being said, since it's not a sin issue, you can do what you want. Honestly, can you get to a point? Can a society, I guess I should say, can a society get to a point that it's so bad off that you're like, yo, that is a really bad idea, and it's really foolish for you to put your kid into a public school system? Yeah, sure. I would agree with that. Are we to that point right now? Maybe, maybe not. I don't really know. I think that I mean, this is going to be probably not the answer that even Kenny may expect me to say, but I think that there's pros and cons to both, honestly. I'm being like, I went to public school, but I'm also right now exposed to a lot of homeschooled kids and homeschool families. And a problem that I see within homeschool kids is this lack of understanding and exposure. And it may, I don't even think it's necessarily the parents' fault. They can teach at home, hey, these are different views that people have on the outside world. But when you are actually exposed to that yourself, and you come home to your family and saying, hey, I was exposed to this worldview, you have a shepherding opportunity then to walk your children through, hey, yeah, this is how the world actually thinks, but here's the truth. So it's also a great training ground, if you will. So there's a pro there. So I'm not personally actually against people saying, hey, you're going to public school.
Right. And I'm not either. I want to.
Yeah, I know you're not.
You're getting at the heart of really where I wanted to get to as well.
It's the why.
Yes, it is. Why do you send them there?
Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons why, I said earlier, it's unwise to have your kids in public school. I want to be careful with that statement, and that's why I said it very slowly. I want to be careful with that statement because I do believe there could be legitimate reasons that your kids are in public school. It can be unwise is probably a better way to say that.
I agree with you.
Why are you sending them there? Why are you not homeschooling? And there may be legitimate reasons. I'm not saying there are not. There are legitimate reasons for that. I'm saying that a lot of parents haven't even thought about this, and you probably should.
I agree.
You need to think through this is maybe the best answer to give. My wife taught in the public school system for years, and she doesn't regret that. I don't regret that. So I'm not saying it's all bad. I'm not saying everything out there is just corrupt. I'm just saying that we're living in an age where more and more we need to be considering this.
No, I totally agree. I mean, we understand the very simple mandates of Scripture is for the family. I mean, the family is instituted by God.
Yep.
It's an extremely important system.
And the school system is not.
And the school system is not. God put into place the family to be the epicenter of education, of training, of shepherding, and really the laying the groundwork of morality by fathers teaching their family the Scriptures, which is the standard. So yeah, that putting your kids in this is something that you have the two far extremes, right? The public school system is like the only way to go because the only kind of real actual education that you're going to get is if you put your kid in with trained professionals. Right. And the other end of it is, hey, you're giving your kids to Satan. Right. You're handing them over to the world, and you're just like, yo, chill out.
Which Vodi Bakum has an interesting quote on this that does stick with you. He's a big homeschool advocate.
He is.
But he says, why are we surprised that our children end up like Romans when we keep sending them to Caesar? And I basically butchered that quote, but that's essentially what he says.
No, and yep, and I know Vodi is very strong on that.
He's close to that extreme.
He's very close to that extreme. And I don't disagree with him on a lot of things that he says. I just think that there are pros and cons to both, and I don't think either one is wrong.
Right.
And that's what I'm saying. It's not a sin issue. Right. But I think it's really helpful to get into the why.
Right.
Like, let's talk about some really practical things that people can actually think about and chew about. Let's just say, okay, let's start with the far left because it's a little bit harder to talk about, and the far right, being the public school system, is a little bit easier to poke holes in. If people say, hey, I only do homeschool.
Right.
Why? Well, is it because of fear?
Right.
Are you driven by this overwhelming fear that if I send my kid into this system, that suddenly I lose control, which is an idol, and what if my kid comes back as a secularist or as denying Christ? Well, are you trusting in Christ for your child's salvation?
Right.
That's a lot easier said than done.
Sure.
That's so much easier said than done. But it's something that you really have to evaluate your heart for, is all I'm saying. Is like, the only reason you're not going to send your kid is because I'm driven by fear. I have complete control over my child at home, but I lose control when I send them out. Therefore, your decisions are driven by fear.
Right.
That would be sinful. You don't want to do that.
Yeah. And the other extreme is, I only send my kids to public school, and there's questions to be asked there too, in the why. Why are you sending them there? Why haven't you considered homeschool? Is it because you don't think that you're competent to raise your kid? Do you think, as Travis said earlier, that the public school system is the only way they can truly be educated and contributing members of society? Because those things are not true either. And it is Is the public school system beneficial? Are there great educators in there? Sure. But God has instituted the family first and foremost. Your child's educational development is not as important as their spiritual development.
Amen.
And so if and this is not the case for everybody, again, don't think in general terms, but if your child is more prone to, for example, peer pressure and other outside opinions, you may want to consider keeping them outside of the public school system for at least a season to really train them in righteousness and godliness before you considered sending them back in. And so there's so many conversations to be had here, but the question really is why.
Yeah, I think one that I've at least come across a lot, which, hey, I'm tracking with what they're saying. I'm just saying I think it's important to notate it. It's stress. Mm-hmm. I'm overwhelmed, which is a sign of self-reliance, and you're very inwardly focused, and you're trying to rely on your own strength to get you through a situation. So you get overwhelmed and you get very stressed out.
Yep.
And let's just say your kid is on the team too much.
Right.
Like they're the captain of team too much. They are stressful. They're a handful. They like John likes to scream. He likes to scream. He likes to grab my ear and he likes to pull it really close to his mouth and say ah and scream. Yeah. That's what John does. But what I'm saying is maybe your kid is the captain of team too much. You're stressed out. You're overwhelmed, and you just I want a break.
Yeah.
I need a break. I need time off. I need me time. I need to be by myself. I can't handle this.
Right.
And you ship them off.
Right.
That's a bad decision. That's a decision that's not based off of purely like, hey, objectively, what's the best decision based off the scriptures here? Right. That's based off of you.
Yeah.
So, and I think that is a really hot topic nowadays for people. I think that's a big reason why school is a thing. Like you literally hear from parents, particularly stay-at-home moms, I get a break. I get like a 3-4 hour break every single day, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
I don't think that would. It's like the fear.
Right.
Like if that's the impetus behind your decision, then I think that we need to reevaluate.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that we're not here to advocate necessarily one way or the other. Our purpose in most of these leftover episodes is let's get you to think.
Let's talk about it.
What your motives are, why are you doing this? This is a big conversation right now. That's why we're talking about it. A lot of people are questioning, should I do this? And we cannot ultimately say to you yes or no.
Nope.
Because it's not primarily a sin issue. And maybe one day it will get to a point that it's clear cut, like the public school system is at a point where it would be unfaithful to send your kids there. I would not say we are definitively at that point yet. Mm-hmm. Some people are going to make the case that we are. We don't necessarily share that opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So yeah, it's a hard conversation. This is our children that we're talking about. It's an important conversation.
Yes.
I would say that the heart of all of this really boils down to what we've said over and over again. It's family discipleship. As fathers, I will speak to fathers. Do you see yourself as the primary spiritual leader of your home? As mothers, do you see yourself as being given the care of these children to raise them up in the discipline and knowledge of the Lord? Something struck me the other day that was said is a lot of times husbands and fathers kind of see themselves, okay, I'm the spiritual leader, I need to have all the answers for my kids, but so do our mothers and our wives. Matter of fact, your wife should probably be one of the best theologians in your home, because she spends, generally speaking, again, generalities, generally speaking, she spends the most time with your kids. And she should be the one that's really pouring into them as she spends time with them. And then you do the same. As you come home, you lead in that as husbands and fathers.
And how do you, and men, you may be asking yourself, well, my wife's not like that.
Yeah.
Then teach her.
Yeah.
Yo,
Love
like that.
her enough.
Like this is literally what you're like. We're talking a lot about kids, which is the topic of the discussion.
Right.
Love your wives, wash her with the word, shepherd her.
Yep.
Love her, train her. That's your ministry. You pour into her, she pours into the children. Of course you pour into the children. But you should be busy at work as well, trying to provide for your family. You don't have time to do all that.
Right.
That's why you pour your life into your wife.
Yeah. So listen, oh man, I thought of so many directions that I could go at that point. But that's good, and that's kind of the heart of this. You go, wait a minute, you started talking about school, and now you're talking about shepherding my family. That's actually the heart of this conversation.
That is the heart of the
That's literally the heart of yes, your kids, in a sense, should get a good education and all that, but what's most important is that they know and love Jesus.
Yeah.
And yes, they need skills to be able to go out into life and provide for themselves and all that. All that's important, but you are the primary role responsible for that, for those things. So
I think a future Leftovers episode, because we're closing out this one right now, could be piggybacking off of this one, because I think a direction that this typically goes, and it's just natural for our world to ship our kids off to other places, the church.
Right.
I mean, how common is it for people just to ship their kids off to get, quote unquote, their spiritual training at the church, their education at school, and when you're at home,
it's fun time.
It's fun time, sometimes I have to discipline you, but we try not to do that, and just talk about what you learned today from everybody else.
We should talk about discipline one day too, parental discipline.
Ooh.
That'll be fun. Yeah.
Flick John on the face.
All right, we're at 16 minutes, which is past our limit, a minute past it. So we're gonna wrap this up. If you got questions on this, if you got a rebuttal to this, let us know.
Yeah.
Again, we can't cover everything in 15 minutes. We probably said something and you're like, wait a minute, what about this? We get it. We can't go into all those branches. This is just a quick think about it. Think about your motives, what's going on. And we're praying for our families. We're praying for. I'm praying for the families of MissionWay Church, and that you would have the wisdom to know what's best for your family and raising them to know and love Jesus. So
awesome, guys. Well, we love you. We appreciate you, and we will see you next time on Leftovers.
Peace.